Welcome to the Gear Gods Excessive Nerd Shit Podcast, bringing you the most in-depth audio production and music interviews with the best engineers, producers, and players in metal.
Man, that is some excessive nerd shit.
Well, then I guess it's a good thing we specialize in excessive nerd shit.
Technically?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this edition of the Gear Gods Excessive Nerd Shit Podcast. Today, our guest is EYAL LEVI.
Hello.
From Unstoppable Recording Machine.
That's me.
And Nail the Mix. I don't really know the distinction, even though I think I have
it's
a
all
lifetime pass.
It's all under that umbrella now, right?
The
URM.
Unstoppable Recording Machine, URM, is the company.
Yeah.
And Nail the Mix is just a product.
Oh, good.
We have many products.
I wouldn't call it just a product,
Yeah.
but
It's
it
more
is-
than a
it's
product.
quite a product.
It's our
There's-
flagship.
Yeah.
It's the flagship.
There's a
It's the
product that you
flagship.
have on there too, kind of.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I also have a product on there. It's a little hard to get to. It's kind of like a secret. Not a secret, but it's like a...
If you know,
you
you
kind of have
know.
to unlock it.
Yours isn't really a product. It's more of a part of a product.
It's a value add.
It's an
add-on.
entry in a library.
It's
Exactly.
the DLC. You gotta get it separate.
Well, I'll just go ahead and plug it as a bonus.
We're off to a great start.
If you enroll in Nail the Mix, I did what's called a fast track, which is basically a crash course on a particular topic, and the topic that I taught was theory for producers. So it was I did a bunch of like basic music theory and how it relates mainly to arrangements of songs. It's crazy. It's so old. I did it so long ago that I had hair.
What?
You did.
I remember that.
Let me just correct one thing. It's not exactly, if you sign up for Nail the Mix, we have an upper tier called URM Enhanced.
Yes.
It's part of that.
Sorry. Thank you for
Ooh.
pointing that out.
I just didn't want someone to hear this, sign up to Nail the Mix, and
I
get
said it's another
pissed
man.
off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You get good distinction to
Where's
make.
my Trey,
No, it
I
Xavier?
bought
It'll
premium.
happen.
My premium snap.
Although if you, Jesus. Sorry. I forgot to mention that also with us is Alex and Isaac today.
Hi.
Obviously, if you're
Yo.
watching the video version of this, you can see that.
Whoa.
But if you're listening to the audio version,
Hey, buddy.
you're trying to identify
We're
them by
here.
their
We're
voices.
real.
We just shook hands.
Believe in us.
And I'm Trey Xavier.
Who?
No one gives a shit.
Oh, that guy.
Thank you guys for having me.
Oh,
Oh,
you're
yeah,
most
man.
welcome.
Thank you for.
Thanks for being our hamster with this new
Happy
robot.
to do
Yeah.
it.
And being a guinea pig even.
Yeah. When I saw
A
they said
hamster is something that goes up your ass.
when I
Guinea
saw
pig is an experiment.
Happy to do both.
when I saw that you were looking, it's like, hey,
That's
any
for
pod-
after the podcast.
You're like, when
That's right.
any podcasts out there, and I'm like, bro, we haven't done a podcast together. Let's do it.
Ayo.
So this episode of the Geared Gods Excessive Nerd Shit Podcast is sponsored by Sweetwater.
Oh, yeah.
So we
That
are
sweet water.
recording on our brand new podcasting setup. We are very, very excited about this. We've got all Rode gear. We're using the Rode Procaster mixer recorder thing. We're using, I think, are these mics also called the Rode Procaster?
They're called podcasters, I believe.
The Road
I don't-
Podcaster
It is, in fact, called the Procaster.
Ah, okay.
Procaster microphones.
and these Road stand thingies,
Rode articulating arms and cages for the microphones.
and then Road hat.
And
Yeah.
AL's wearing a
Hey.
Rode
Which
hat.
Rode sent me.
and
so-
a very important IKEA desk.
Not
Not
by
a
Rode.
sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
by
We're on the road to recording podcasts. I always like having a sponsor that is like really easy to say nice things about.
Right.
And Sweetwater is the shit. When something inevitably breaks or we can't figure it out, I'm going to be calling up my Sweetwater guy. and
You're
being like,
Tyler from Sweetwater.
Josie, something broke. Can you tell me how to fix it? Anyway, so that's cool. So thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this podcast. We got all of this stuff on Sweetwater.
Hey guys, real quick, just wanted to let you know that during the first 2 weeks of October, Sweetwater is having a gigantic sale on all things specifically made for content creators. That means that everything you see in this video is going to be on sale, and I've put a link in the description where you can get to all that stuff on the Sweetwater website. Now, back to the video.
Let's talk about a thing. Let's talk about some stuff. What's going on? What's new with Unstoppable Recording Machine, Al?
Well, we are featuring Flesh God Apocalypse on Nail the Mix this month, which is really, really sick. because I love that band
Yeah.
deeply.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done that much super extreme metal.
You had Archspire
Yeah, we had Archspire. We had Aborted.
aborted.
We've had several really badass metal bands, but this really, really extreme stuff, it's kind of rare actually. So it's always, that's kind of my roots. So I'm always very, very happy about that. We're actually going to Rome to film, which is also really, really cool.
When in Rome.
Yeah, film Nell the Mix. So
The age-old saying.
yeah, but we've just been really working hard to establish ourselves as the place to go if you're actually serious about getting great at recording and mixing and want to actually have a career in it, specifically in heavy music. That's kind of our world.
One of the things that I think is the coolest about what you guys do is that you can study recording at a lot of great places or in a lot of shitty places, or just on your own. But
That's true.
it's really hard to get an idea for what a good source sound is supposed to sound like. And you can listen to albums and go like, damn, this is a great mix. And you can kind of sort of try and reverse engineer it. But having the real raw tracks in a multi-track form is 100% worth the price of admission, if nothing else. Like getting those raw multi-tracks and being able to pick them apart, hear what a good source signal is supposed to sound like for any given microphone or input or whatever, to me was even the most valuable thing. And that's even without all of the major stuff like live streaming the mix with the guy who actually did it and all that stuff. Like I got that. Sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but like I
How dare
downloaded
you
I downloaded
on
those.
this here
What is this? What is this? A
podcast.
podcast?
I downloaded the Amaranth stems, which thank you so much for fucking doing that. Holy shit!
Did it for you.
I
I think literally you did it for him.
I fucking begged you for it, and you did it. I didn't even have to beg that hard, but
No,
oh my
you
god,
didn't.
it was so good. And just being able to pull apart the harmonies and hear everything. Oh my
There were
god,
so many harmonies.
I learned so much. I don't even mix. I don't mix at all, and it was well worth it.
So there's like the fan aspect of fans of the music. Sometimes we do bands I actually legitimately love. Like when we got Opeth.
Oh yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, it was so cool to be able to go through every single track and be like, wow, they really are great.
Yeah.
But I think that for people who aren't in the industry, I think how are they going to learn where the bar is at if nobody shows them? They're not just going to figure it out.
Right.
The bar is a really elusive thing. It's always changing. It's always evolving. And this old system of mentorship that used to exist with big studios doesn't really exist anymore. When there was a lot more of a big studio industry. So now people have the internet or traditional schools, really. And traditional schools will show you basics, but they're not going to show you where the bar actually is at, in the real world.
I'll show you where it was
To-
20,
to
20
be
years ago.
honest,
Exactly.
to be honest, pretty much every single person I've ever met that went to like a traditional school to learn audio engineering is not good.
It's not even that they're not good; they suck so badly.
Yeah,
Like I think
it's like you went to school.
I've never
you
met-
spent how much?
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
never met anyone who's
Yes, you
done
have.
that. Who's
Yes,
really?
you have.
Who?
Have you met Josh Newell?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Where did he go?
We're sorry, Josh.
I forget where he went, but he went to school.
He's like, come on.
have you met
come
Alex Prieto?
Yeah. Oh, him too.
Okay. So
Okay, so there's outliers.
it's not
Dude,
that-
Josh did the last Linkin Park
Oh,
album.
I know
right?
He
Josh.
did. He did
Yeah.
a bunch of them.
Yeah.
The thing is that it's not that the school is good or bad. I mean, most students that go to any creative school suck. So that's true for.
I guess you're right.
I mean,
Yeah.
But most people who go into the arts are not going to be good. So, yeah, it's true. You're going to get a lot of useless people coming out of recording school, but there's also just a lot of useless people. So
That's actually,
Confirmed.
when you put
people.
it that way, you're actually right. It's not an audio thing only. You're right. There's a lot of people in a lot of
it's same with music schools, photography. I'm sure there's some serious disasters in culinary school.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like serious disasters. But I think that what we're offering, even if you are a student of a traditional school and you're a good student, like an Alex Prieto or a Josh Newell, they're still not getting the bar shown to them. And they're still not getting super cutting edge material. And a lot of the skills that are being taught aren't the most hireable skills. So you might learn how I guess signal flow works on a console, which is great, but rarely will you see kids come out of recording school knowing how to edit vocals at really, really high levels or edit drums at really, really high levels. And those are the things that producers need. There's certain things that if you're really, really good at, you're going to always be employable. Kind of like in metal, if you're a badass drummer, you're always going to have a gig.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's a super employable skill.
Yeah.
Being a badass editor in audio, if you are, you're gonna get hired.
Yeah.
That's the best way, I think, to get in on the ground floor too.
Yeah, dude.
Absolutely.
You can pigeonhole yourself, but if you can edit, you're gonna make big time producers' lives way
'Cause people
easier.
use you.
They're willing to pay you for that, and if you're dependable,
Dude,
then they'll hire you a lot.
I will pay people money to do the editing for me.
Yeah, and
the problem is every time I've hired people, they sometimes do a pretty good job, and it's like, man.
Well, you're not hiring the right people, or you're not teaching them properly.
I guess I gotta. I try to.
It sucks that you would have to teach them to do a job.
No,
that you're
it's
paying.
not that.
Right.
You have to teach them your specific taste.
There are everybody has their
that's for
specific
sure.
tastes. I'm like anal. To be honest, like the shit that I'm like anal about probably doesn't really matter that much.
It matters to
fair.
you though, and so if you hire an editor, they need to.
Yeah.
They're working for you. Like,
they need to take that seriously.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't. I don't know. I don't think that you should be like the stuff I care about doesn't matter. They should care about the stuff that you care about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
The
true.
best editors I know are able to edit in multiple different styles and interpret what the producer wants and just do it that way.
Right.
They don't bring their own style to the table. They just bring badass editing chops.
Yeah.
You have to be an asset for the person you're
I will
working
say
for.
this.
Absolutely.
I will say this though: the guys that I have worked with so far, they're super quick. Like I don't know how they do it. Like I was like, man, how do you do this quickly? It's pretty good.
That's important too.
Yeah.
I watched a course with one EYAL LEVI about
Who's that guy?
doing drum production on Creative Live
I
a
remember
million
that.
years ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was one of the ones that Gear God sponsored, but
Probably.
I think it was.
It might have been.
It was. Yeah.
But I watched most of it, and just talking about. I didn't actually watch the editing part.
I didn't
think
do
it was.
it.
I think it was John Douglas.
Yeah.
But it was an add-on. It wasn't, or it was a downloadable or something, whatever. And it just the way that you talked about how people have to be able to edit using like macros, hotkeys, like just really dialing it way the fuck in, using every tool at your disposal to be able to do it fast. Because if you can't do it fast, you're not going to make enough money for it to be worth your time. You're going to be miserable. You have to be
That's
fast.
true.
It's not, and also you're not going to be valuable to the person that's hiring you because
Exactly.
there's lots of scenarios where, say, a producer has very little amount of time, just maybe in a drum room that they don't own or on a record because there's a low budget, and so they need the edits back immediately. So they'll, like, say, record a song on drums, send it to the editor, and want it back at least by the next day so they can know if it's good to go before they have to tear down.
Right.
If that can't be turned around fast, like, what are you even doing?
What's the point?
Yeah.
So
been in scenarios like that.
yeah, for sure, we all have. So speed is essential, but not just speed. Speed alone is not enough. Like, you have to be able to do things in accordance with what the boss wants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, it's got to be great at speed and musical.
Now,
but those are decisions you got to be making on the fly.
The editing stuff on URM is mostly on URM enhanced, right? Like the fast track stuff, right?
Yeah. And we have like standalone courses, like one called Ultimate Drum Production that goes deep on everything. But yeah, like Nail the Mix is not where you're going to find the editing stuff. Nail the Mix is where you're going to watch somebody great go through a mix. And
Well, it's not just that too, because
there's other stuff, but that's the main thing.
Yeah. Like I always, one of the cool things I always really like that you guys did this from the very beginning in Nail the Mix is that like it's like, all right, this month we're doing this song with this person. At the end of the month, he's going to mix it and everything. But people have that entire month to actually, take the stems, try it out for themselves, and then ideally they'll be done mixing it right before the stream happens. And then you see what the guy actually does, and it's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
You figure out
look
if you
how
were
different I did it from this person.
Yeah, or if you did something, I don't want to say right or wrong, but
Right, but
Right
like
or
there's
wrong.
but there's
kind of right or
but
wrong.
like there's like aha moments. Like I wish I had more time to actually check out more of the Nail the Mix stuff. But like the last one I checked out, I think was the Meshuggah one.
Which one they were on twice?
So the one that what we did.
Tui Madsen or Daniel
Tui.
Bergstrand?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one at NRG and man, like the stuff you learn. Like I did it one way, and then the way that Tui did it, I was like, oh my god, I did it so completely differently. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is nuts. I mean, that's why we don't release the tracks on the same day as as the stream. What I felt was actually lacking in online education. Like the big thing that was missing was the ability to make it real life. So you can watch somebody doing something online, but if you don't have references, like real life references, how are you going to tie that to your own skills?
Right.
So
you can't apply those in like a real world scenario. Like
I mean, maybe in a really abstract way. So by giving people the actual tracks, they can really give it a shot and then be schooled at the end of the month by the guy who actually did it. But their familiarity with the tracks is what makes all the difference. When they watch the real mixer go through the mix, it'll actually sink in. Yeah, as opposed to just watching some random tutorial or, which is kind of like, I feel like if you don't have the tracks, it's like semi-entertainment and semi-educate. It's like educational entertainment. It's not actually very educational.
Has there been any scenario, I'm sure this has probably come up by now, where you'll have like, you have a guest that's going to be doing a song or whatever, and they've come up to you like, oh man, I wonder if my mix will be worse or better than my actual mix when I do it
every
on
time.
this live stream. Yeah.
Every time.
I would think so too, right?
Yeah, they're always worried about that,
Yeah.
but it never happens. They always beat their old mixes.
Oh, nice. You would hope so.
They should live stream every mix that they do just to make the best possible
see the
record.
progression.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, some of these songs are from records that came out like 10 years ago.
Right.
Or one of the Meshuggahs was like from 24 years ago.
Oh,
So you would hope that the mixer's gotten better.
yeah.
Unless he's a real stubborn asshole and insists on doing everything exactly the way that he used to.
24 years?
For 24 years. Seems unlikely.
But we probably would not have heard of him if he did that.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Some people do one thing for their whole lives. You know what I mean? Like,
it is tough to sustain a career with doing that, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, so I think there's some producers who have a reputation for that, but if you actually listen to their stuff, it doesn't all sound the same. Like people were saying that about Andy Sneap in the early 2000s, like all this stuff sounds the same. It does not all sound the same.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. Especially today.
I think if you're working at a certain level and putting out something that's a certain level of quality, people might mistake that for it sounding the same. But I don't think that's it.
Right.
And there's also the whole idea that these bands and labels also have, they want what's popular because they want to sell records. So they'll say, make it sound more like this record that you did. We want that sound. So the mixer will have to approximate it somehow while still keeping it true to the band is working on at that point in time. So there is a little bit of push and pull, but I mean,
if they want that sound, why don't they just go to the guy who gave them that sound? Unless it's like a
sometimes they
budget
do.
thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like so in the early 2000s, Andy Sneap did Kill Switch, right? And so people would go to him wanting the Kill Switch sound,
right?
Much like people would go to Bob Rock wanting the Metallica Black Album sound,
right?
Which he's talked about, which never works because you can only do that. Records are a point in time with certain artists; you can't recreate them.
Yeah,
that's why when people accuse a producer of having everything they do sound the same, that's just not possible.
Yeah,
unless you're making the exact same record with the same musicians, same instruments, same everything, same everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not possible. So I don't know.
Until in the future when we'll have a studio version of a Kemper, like where you can
studio
load
version
a
of a Kemper.
studio preset.
Load in a band.
Yeah, load in everything. 100% of everything goes in the same, and you just, I don't know.
Sometimes
it could be done.
Sometimes me and Glenn Fricker debate about like, because he likes, he has his popular argument is that like, all metal records sound the same today because the drums are all. I totally disagree with it. I totally disagree too, and I try to like give him my argument in a methodical, thought out way, and he's like, no man, it's like you're taking out the human element. Like, I mean,
you're not.
No, you're not. He's like, no, man, that sample is some guy, like, it's probably somewhere else in the world in some really nice studio who recorded it. It's not the actual drummer. I was like,
but
totally
what about
different.
the way that Def Leppard records were made, where it's one note at a time, layered. It's the same thing as what people do now, just with different.
It's just
different
gear.
technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just the technology's changed, so it's more convenient. So I guess I don't know. Maybe he's.
To the-
But like that example, actually specifically, I think it was me, Glenn Fricker, Warren here. We're all talking together about this, and then Warren specifically, I think, brought that example up.
It is the best example.
Yeah.
It's the best example because what they wish they had Pro Tools back then.
Yeah.
Or what Queen was doing back
my
in the
God,
day.
Oh,
yeah.
You don't think they wish they had something
gotta
like
be
Pro
better.
Tools now?
Yeah.
It's not removing the human element.
Yeah.
What it is that the barrier to entry is a lot lower than it used to be.
Yeah.
So you have access to a lot more shitty records.
Right.
But man, there were shitty records in the 90s and the 80s too.
Right.
Like I remember being in local scenes. Try to dig up some local demos from local demo studios from the 90s and tell me that the human element was any good.
Is that human enough for you?
Yeah.
By the way, I just want people to know that I'm not talking any shit on.
We're not
Glenn or anything
talking
like
shit.
that. Glenn's one of my best
It's
friends.
just that the
He
problem
knows-
hasn't
Yeah.
really,
No, look,
Yeah.
we're allowed to disagree.
Yes, yeah.
I'm friends with Glenn too.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk to him about this on a podcast. Like, this is totally not talking shit.
Yeah. No, I know. I just want
I-
people.
Just
I
so
have-
people know.
Yeah,
I have
know
talked
Glenn
to,
knows
to
that.
Glenn about this on multiple
Yeah, I know.
occasions,
Yeah.
and I'll roast the fuck out of him over it.
To that point, I'm curious. 'cause-
Nobody gets to talk shit about my grandma except for me.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
yeah, I mean, but there is that, there is. Well, I mean, Glenn's argument is definitely there's like a strain of, I don't know what's the word, of people that are doing music.
We're using Glenn as an example of this because he's somebody that we know,
Right.
And because he's very outspoken
buddy.
I was
about
about to
it.
say he's gone on record.
Yeah,
He's
Yeah,
gone
this
on
isn't
record
a,
saying
this is a
multiple
well-known
there's-
thing.
I mean, yeah, there's a whole genre of person
Right.
who thinks like this,
Yeah.
and Glenn. So I love the drum sounds that Glenn gets a lot of the time because he does not allow himself to use samples, and so he works so hard at getting natural drum sounds to sound really good. And of course, he does a lot of shit that would have been considered cheating, like even
Right.
10 years ago,
Yeah,
like
quote unquote cheating.
quote unquote cheating,
Yeah.
which doesn't exist,
Right.
but using like the drum leveler, all
the
this
main
stuff,
thing,
like,
yeah.
and it's I don't think there's anything wrong
No.
with that, but he's also extremely ignorant of samples because he doesn't use them at all, and so he's like, oh, they all sound the same, but like people who use samples all the time and are listening for like what drum
Think they're
samples
good
are
sample
using all that,
sounds.
Man.
like I know people who'll blend like fucking 50 different snares together, different.
Right.
I have
Right.
this
It's
is
fine.
I have a unique perspective on this because I have seen so many people mix. So
Right.
I mean, back when I was mixing, I worked with a few different great people, but now through doing Nail the Mix, we've done like 60 episodes now.
Jeez.
So 60 amazing mixers, in addition to the courses we've done, and then all the podcasts. Like, okay, so I've sat in control rooms all over the world watching these people work using samples, and they do not all sound the same.
Yeah.
They just don't. Like, and they all have different ways of making them sound more or less real, but they all have a purpose for whether it's sounding like a canon or a totally natural snare. There's always a purpose for what they're doing, and they do not all sound the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's I have
No
a
way.
I have a theory as to why a lot of people like latch on to that argument that Glenn makes, and I think it's not for the reason that Glenn probably would agree with, but like I feel like this is just based on what I see around on like the internet, right? But like I feel like the people who are, you know, on this like, oh yeah, I'm gonna record real drums, no samples. You know, it's people that seem
It's
to
their pride fucking with them.
It's not just that I feel like they're almost kind of using it as an excuse for maybe why
Why their
certain
shit
elements
sucks.
of their production isn't that great.
Yeah, but you can't go up to every single person who is listening
Right.
to your band and say, "Oh no, it sounds like that because we used real drums."
Right, exactly. That's the thing.
Right.
It's like oh no,
They're just gonna think, "Oh, this sucks."
yeah, exactly.
Or it doesn't.
No,
That-
it's
that's-
fine. I'm just shitty.
That's what I mean. Like, so like, and I see. I mean, I don't know if this is. It's just maybe because Glenn is like such like a lightning rod for this specific thing. I just happen to see it a lot on his like fan base or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, cause I did a bunch of those mix review, like you know how he does on his channel those live
Yeah, yeah.
streams, review mixes, right? So
Yeah,
I did a
one
few
of
of those. Yeah, so I did a few of those of them, and I noticed through that I was like, it's like a lot of these people are like, yeah, these are real drums, and I'm like, I wish they weren't.
Really bad drums. The thing too is like that point, like you can't really like get mad at someone for wanting shit to sound good and human. Like we all want our stuff to sound good, but it's understanding that it can sound good and that it's totally feasible to use samples
Right.
and like that's a whole world.
Like-
Like you have to understand that
There's
that's
not-
just
it's
as
not
complex.
It's not just that. I have had so many bands come to me back when I was producing for a living and say, I want a natural drum sound like this record, where it was clearly sampled and
Right,
edited
right.
and all that stuff. So people don't even know what they're talking
Right,
about. They
right.
don't know what they're hearing.
Yeah.
It's a lot like the argument between tube amps and modelers or
Right.
analog gear versus plugins. Like most people making these arguments don't even know what the fuck they're hearing.
Yeah.
Right.
They usually
back
have
it
not
up.
even heard the two different, like they haven't heard a real 1176 when they talk about it being better than
Right.
a UAD version.
Right.
They don't. They
I have
typically
both,
don't know
by
what
the
they're
way.
talking about.
I have the real one here, and I have a UD version, and I've tested both out. And dude, it's for all
It's
intents and
close.
purposes, it's basically identical.
So yeah, no. So you're right. The parameters are going to be different.
Yeah.
It's the same with amp modelers. Like
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to do it by ear, which is really tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Who grew up thinking that recording was like a video game.
Yeah.
So I actually think that Glenn and I might agree
Mm.
on that your ears are what make all the difference.
Oh, definitely.
But if you use your ears to do a comparison between the plug-in version, a good plug-in version, like a UAD version of an 1176, and then the analog version, if you use your ears, you will realize that you can get them to sound pretty much identical.
Yeah.
My take on all of this is that we're such an echo chamber as musicians, producers, like, and metal specifically is like so filthy with musicians that we're all worrying about this shit. The average listener is the person that we should be thinking about.
We
And
are.
they don't
this
give a
is the
fuck.
average. This is the average listener for metal. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But
Maybe there's some styles of metal that cross over into non-musician-y territory, but I do think that a very large percentage of the metal audience play an instrument.
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm talking about.
I would
Yeah,
say
so
so.
we're-
But at the
we're-
same time, I
so
mean,
we
yeah, I
are-
guess.
So we are talking to our audience.
Yeah.
But I think the audience is trained right now to be like that. Like they've cared so much about the production element. It seems like it's so different from other genres of music, except for maybe like, I don't know, jazz, like something where they really care about how it was done or anything like that. I think that, like you're saying right now, the fans, the audience does care a lot in metal. And I guess I'm saying that sucks and we can either feed that or not. Like,
Wait, as from the perspective of an artist, you're
yeah,
saying that
artist
sucks?
or a producer.
So you mean kind of because the fans get on there and tell the artists what to do,
yeah, because they care
Yelp.
about something that's that fucking stupid. Like, instead of worrying about like, oh, does this sound good? Does this sound like is the song hitting? Is it does the production match the vision of the artist? Does it all come together in a coherent artistic thought? Or are they going, oh, I can't listen to this because it's got drum samples on it?
Yeah, it's fucking toxic as shit. I hate that. We actually are trying to combat that a lot by getting pretty vocal about those types of attitudes when we see them pop up in our community. I wanted to disagree with you, but I actually agree with you completely. It actually is kind of annoying, but dude, it's not just in music.
Yeah.
I've been getting into fitness lately. You think exercise people aren't like that? Or go look at film people on film essays on YouTube or anything. Like, it's not just our world. Like, the internet has given everybody an equal platform for spreading their shitty ideas. So it's just something we all have to deal with. Sorry.
But it is important.
I just don't know what we can do about it. Like,
I think stomping it out when you see it is a good first step.
That's cool, but I think you're right, but you also can't.
I think in
it's
metal,
something we have to live with and deal with, or consider that it exists.
I will say this: we can only stomp it out in our private community. Like, so on YouTube or whatever, or on our Facebook ads, it is just as toxic as any place else.
Right.
So we can't do anything about that. We're not going to start deleting people's comments or doing any of that. But yeah, so we can only do it within our own community where we set the rules. But I actually think it's really, really important for organizations, companies, or even bands who have their own Facebook groups or fan clubs of bands. So, like, I know Black Dahlia Murder, for instance, has a massive fan-run Facebook group, like several tens of thousands of people in there. And so the people who run stuff like that, online communities, can make the decision to enforce good behavior.
Yeah.
Like, just respectful behavior. And it's not it. And I'm not talking about, censoring speech or killing people's opinions. I'm just saying that as the leader of a community, you can set the standards. You can set standards. That's it. So in the YouTube comments section, there are no standards. Yeah. Like, anything goes. And so you're going to see the worst of humanity.
Yeah.
But dude, it's not just metal.
Yeah,
it's just people.
I think maybe this might not just be metal too, but something I noticed that happens a lot in metal is that the people who listen to metal are maybe a little more attached to a certain band or music or album that they've done, and if anything deviates from that, they have a hard time dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like in other forms of music that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when a band like pretty much any band that was like sounded a little different when they started, and now they've like evolved their sound, right? They're people change, their sound changes, right? Like you have just a huge part of their fan base that's just constantly bitching about man, this band used to be so much better.
Yeah, metal eats its own.
Yeah,
I do think that that's true. I actually think that one of the reasons that metal has not gotten bigger is because every single time that a metal band starts to grow, the metal community turns on it.
Yeah,
totally.
Yep.
That's
so. It's like oh, dude, you're too big now. No.
Well, I think a perfect example. I'm not even a fan of this band, but Avenged Sevenfold is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Because if you think about when they came out, people hated scene music, right? They wanted bands who could play. They were thinking back in the 90s, bands wrote songs. Guitar solos sucked, and we want guitar solos back. Like, this band did all those things, and we're playing like old school metal,
right?
With real musicians, real guitar solos, choruses, like all that stuff. And metal fans hated them.
Yeah.
Hated them.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And they got all the scene girls instead.
Yeah.
yes. I mean,
Which
they
I
won.
would much rather have as
Look,
fans.
yes, they won. Avenged Sevenfold clearly won, but I'm just saying that I think that the metal community eats its own. Like, so do you remember
100% agree.
Slipknot? The now it's okay to like them, But do you remember what it was like to like them? Well, I don't know if you liked them, but I always did. You weren't allowed to say that in certain circles back up
when I was in
until
school.
recently.
When I was in school, it's like you like Slipknot.
You were in school
That
for like
thing?
18 years though,
Hey,
so
man, that's beside the point.
Yeah, you were not allowed to say that. Not in the underground communities.
no.
And this band had blast beats. They were fucking satanic. Like
Yeah.
all the stuff that you would want
Yeah.
in a big metal band.
Yeah.
Like they were about as extreme as it can get for
I was
a
going to
mainstream
say
band.
a recent thing that's kind of similar, though they're not very heavy metal or anything like that. But Ghost is another band where I know all like the metal guys that I know just hate Ghost.
They're not into it.
Just hate Ghost.
I'm not into it.
I mean, it's not my thing either.
But
But
I don't hate it.
But I don't hate it because it's not metal or because they're popular.
I kind of don't give a shit enough to hate
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's kind of benign music a little bit for how much of a cult following they have.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
I mean, I like it, but it's not. you know.
apparently they put on a really nice show.
So Trey, what I want to talk more about. It seemed like I got this vibe that that this thing you were talking about, the audience having this kind of access bothered you. I want to talk about that. Why?
Because I don't think that the audience should have almost any influence on the art at all. I think that the artist should decide the aesthetic of what they want their art to be, and it should be as pure of a vision as they can get out into the world. And I think if they try to listen to the fans, quote unquote fans, or their audience almost at all, or I mean, there's exceptions to this, of course, but I think that people feeling like they are entitled to influence their favorite artists is fucking bullshit, and I think you should expect to never be able to do that. I think that because of this thing that we're talking about, like if you look at a YouTube comment section, it is full of fucking morons who don't know what they're talking about, and to allow someone like that to have an influence over your art and your music is a fucking travesty. Because if people let that determine what they're doing artistically, what's going to come out is shit. And, like, I mean, I don't know, like, look at, like, Whitechapel or something. Like, they incorporate, like, a little bit of clean singing, and all of a sudden they're fucking sellouts and wah, 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 and what they put out was something fucking great. And they shouldn't listen to fucking tough guy douchebags.
Okay.
Ever.
All right. So two things. What about when bands themselves say shit like, we're doing it for the fans? So what do you think of that? First of all, do you believe it when bands say that? Like, are they just saying that as PR, or are they being honest, or should they be honest?
Are you talking about they're doing something musically?
Yeah, or
in a certain way?
When I feel well, it's kind of an ambiguous statement, but it's something that I've heard bands say all the time in interviews, like doing this for the fans. It's for the kids.
I think you could base career moves and stuff like tour routing or releasing a box set at a certain time or doing an event or something like that.
So you mean
for
just
the fans?
the core of the music should not be influenced? But hold on. Then I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we can all think of certain bands who have had a certain trajectory, and then they put out a record that just fucking sucks. and the fans respond by purchasing maybe half the amount that they purchased before on opening week, and everybody thinks of that album as like, oof.
That was the point. That was the point I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Shouldn't.
But I don't think that the fans somehow influencing, directly influencing by means of.
I mean, there's no more
communicating
direct
directly.
influence than not buying an album.
Well, right, but what I mean is, I mean like saying this album should have had more blast beats, or this album, your next album needs to have more blast beats,
I
or
mean, I
whatever.
think-
Like that's the kind of shit. I'm like, you shut the fuck up.
I mean, I think
like you shut your
'cause then
fucking mouth.
That dilutes
It
the
has
artist's
nothing
intent
to
in the
like.
first place.
It's not your guy. Like the artists. I mean the fans. Of course they're important. Of course they are. And having an audience, if you don't care about having an audience, then you're also an idiot because just don't put your music out, record it, and then leave it on your hard drive. Like, fuck off. But at the same time, like,
I mean, I think
they don't.
You're
They
drawing
don't own.
you're drawing such a hard line at all fans are.
I kind of agree.
No. I'm not saying that all fans are idiots. I'm just saying that
You
like
said
it's
no
not
fans
their
should
place.
have any influence. Yeah,
It's not their place.
it's not their place.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's extraordinarily entitled for someone to expect that.
Oh,
that
yeah,
their
to
favorite
expect it,
artist
but
should do should
Hold on,
care what they think at all.
Play it out a little bit. So
Sure.
if for you, Alex,
Yes,
play it
yes.
out. So say fan wants more blast beats on a
Right.
record. So then it's like, okay, where exactly should there have been more blast beats? Which parts? And then what? So they're going to be like, okay, at 3 minutes and 14 seconds in this song, there
Oh.
should have been more blast beats. It's like, okay, so next record, when I start writing songs, should I call you to tell me when blast
Yeah.
beats?
Right,
Oh, so
right.
our
No.
band is
Yeah.
all of our Facebook fans are now in our band.
That's not
They
how
all
I
have
was thinking
say?
about it. I was thinking about it as like
But that's where it goes. If you
Yeah.
start to give them say
Mm-hmm.
that, you just play it out and see how ridiculous it gets.
right, but like if you're like a band, you're like, oh well, we're getting less and less popular. People are liking our music less and less. What could we be doing?
I think you can gauge that on a very large scale.
Yeah, I was
and
about
if
to say,
you're
if-
if you're worried
that's
about
exactly-
a business,
that's what I meant.
Like running
Yeah.
running your band as a business, of course, is important. Selling records, getting good slots on
Get a better
tours
producer.
and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
And actually listen to
but
the
you have to
producer.
make those decisions yourself. And of course, no matter what, you want to make
Yeah,
the thing that you're doing to be the best that it can be,
Yeah.
or just being, or the
Yeah, I don't
being
think any,
objectively high
I mean,
quality.
Yeah,
but
I don't think anyone should be listening to like, oh, this song there should have been more blast beats. No, it's like, but if like a large swath of your what was once rabid fan base is like largely rejecting something or largely
And agreeing on
saying
the same
something,
thing.
then you should probably at least
Consider it.
at least think about it.
Well,
not just cast it off because
so
a fan said
what
it.
you're saying is
No.
the market ultimately decides the value of the band, and that's true.
Right.
Just because if
just how-
if
Yeah.
if they don't like it, they're not going to buy it.
Right.
But when it comes down to the actual work of art or the work of
If-
creating the art,
Yeah.
like
Like
okay,
like
you
if,
brought up
if you're gonna like if you're like disconnecting like just business completely from art and just pure art in terms of like pure art, then I 100% agree. But like
It's not that- not quite that
well,
simple.
but if we're,
It's
because
just
I don't
not-
think we're talking about what's best for a band's business or what's best for them in terms of their career.
Right.
I'm specifically talking about the art. Okay, here's an example.
I think even for the business, you're right, because again, if you bring in the fans' opinions and start to actually incorporate them, what does that mean? And when you start, it goes back to that example. It's like, okay, so you want more of this kind of singing. All right, where? Like
Yeah.
where on this album
Right,
did
right.
this kind of singing, would that kind of singing have fit more? And it's okay. Next album, why don't you be there in the studio to produce us and tell us where to do a certain kind of singing
Yeah,
you like?
and
Right.
and
It's
like,
ridiculous.
And
Right,
it just
right.
comes down
are
to
you
like,
gonna bring
who's-
all 10,000, 50,000 of your fans? Like,
right.
Right.
bring them all in, take take a poll, take an
Right.
average, like you
It's-
can see how quickly
Yeah.
that devolves. And so that's why personally, like, I don't draw a lot of hard lines in the sand. Okay.
Right.
I am not a very like absolutist person at all.
Right.
But for this particular thing, I think if you are not in the band, if you are not one of the producers,
Yeah.
your opinion is basically worth zero.
Yeah, well,
As close
because
to zero as makes any
because
difference.
by saying that stuff, you're basically electing yourself to be the producer.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
to be
Yeah.
another
Let me
band
do
member.
it, you know.
Yeah.
Crack
Yeah.
fingers.
Yeah, that is true.
So I'm like, nope. Like, no. I'm a guy who reads all his own YouTube comments.
Oh,
like,
man, why?
Because for what
Why
I
do you hate yourself,
because I do everything for validation. Okay?
Well, that's the thing, too, is, like,
and
who-
I'm saying this, like, I'm saying that like this validation
Hey guys,
from fans
hey guys
is
in
not
the comments
important, but,
below, make sure you let Trey know just exactly what you think of him.
you
I think
know?
it's important to ask yourself, like, who is this music for? Are you making it for you, for
Yeah,
your, because
that's
music
true.
is it's communication. You're communicating an idea or a feeling.
Look, if
to
you're
the best
Max
of your
Martin,
ability.
if you're Max Martin, you have like a formula down. You're not gonna listen to what anybody says. You've been making hit records for like the past 10 years.
If you're already
you're
worth
doing.
$400 million
Yeah,
and you
like-
don't give a shit
Yeah.
what anybody thinks.
and you don't need to like hear what anybody's opinion is because you don't need their opinion. You know, they've already told you what their opinion is by the amount of sales
Yeah.
that he has.
So, but Max Martin is writing hits for the mass market.
Right.
Yeah, but I would bet you,
And
and
I-
I don't know this, but when it comes down to an actual writing session with him, I bet you that he's much more artistic and doing his own thing than people realize.
I think he's just got great taste,
he's
and
just
I think
tapped in.
I know that he for sure loves everything that he makes, and he cares a lot about it, and he's very serious about how he goes about it. And like every demo that he makes of a song that he writes, if he produces the song, he makes the artist sing it exactly the way that he did on the demo. And I mean, these are like apocryphal stories because he's very secretive. But
Yeah.
I've read a couple interviews and reporters who have gotten to hear like the "Hit Me Baby One More Time" demo. They're
Right.
like, he sang it exactly like Britney sang it just the
Right.
way that Max did on the and but the point is like Max Martin or Meshuggah or fucking Dying Fetus, like the reason that we like them is because of them, not because of our stupid fucking input on what
Yep.
they do or what they should
Projecting,
do. Okay,
yeah.
like
Right.
you know. And if we went back and like if the internet had existed in '94, like would Nevermind sound the way that it does?
Right.
Like, or would they be like, oh, we got to think about what YouTube comments are going to be or any? That's just
So-
that's just
kills-
one
it
example.
kills-
But
So just so I'm clear about this. So in terms of people making their decision based on what they think of the art in terms of will I buy this, will I not buy this, like that's where it's cool, right?
well,
to do your own
it's
thing.
more like there's literally nothing you
As
can
long as
really
they're
do
not
about it. one
as
way or
long
the
as they're
other.
not actually telling you specifically.
Well, of course, you're
So-
saying people vote with their money,
Right,
basically.
right, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah. So as long as
that's-
they're- so as long
I think
as-
that's kind of a different topic.
Okay.
I'm specifically
That's why I asked.
talking
I wasn't
about
sure. Yeah.
because that's pretty much the only kind of feedback aside from like meeting the artist at a live show that you used to have. Like
Right.
there was a point at which your entire feedback was from like I don't know, the record company giving you the sales numbers and
Right.
then meeting a fan at the show or a man on the street. Okay, so nowadays there's a fucking comment section for everything.
You can DM your favorite singer.
Yeah, you can slide
Literally.
like I could slide into Dave Davidson's DMs and be like, "Bro, your solos on the last album were fucking garbage. What's wrong?
What was
with
that
you?
compressor
There's
you're
too
using?
much too much jazz. I need more thrash." You know what I mean, or whatever. Like
There's so much
Right.
power. Yeah.
For me,
I don't
the
know why
kick
I
drum
picked
on your
Dave-
last album
Dave-
is
Dave.
better.
for me, oh god,
For
I
me-
could, I heard the
You've heard the for me
For me.
European what do you call it? European personality disorder.
EPD. Yeah.
I heard it in that comment.
Well,
me.
because I've experienced the for me a lot. The
Yeah.
for me, the kick was better on that album or whatever.
Yeah.
I do a terrible European accent,
But it was
like
well,
there's
it was
only
nice
one.
and non-regional. Like it was non-specific.
Vaguely
For me,
exotic.
like where
For me, the kick was better.
I mean, it could
Yeah.
be South America too. It could be like anywhere. Yeah, but it's that kind of shit. Like,
So the argument
What-
you're saying you guys are making is that it's a zero-sum game basically to go down that rabbit hole.
yeah, but
Absolutely.
Yeah.
also just I want people who are fans of music to actually be fucking fans of music,
Right.
and not try to also be critics. And I think that everyone has a right to criticize whatever they want. Basically, like that's
Right.
it's art. Everyone's going to.
Well, there's
You
a
know, you
difference,
go-
there's
you
a
go
difference
look at-
between criticizing something and having an opinion on something, right? So everybody,
Yeah.
yeah,
The thing is too,
Sure.
if you you take other people's input and shape your art according to that, you're gonna get like your whole fan base is going to have wildly different opinions about how it should be,
Right.
and the end product is just going to be this
Yeah.
like diluted like blob of like benign tofu, as opposed to saying something that
No.
like made you love it in the first
It's
place. Like,
like-
my favorite
definitely.
my favorite records are not the best produced records, are not the most like well like quote unquote written, but they make me like feel something, and like whatever it takes to make me feel a certain way, like that's why it's a good record to me.
Yeah.
Like the kick on like Great Misdirect by BT Bam, like that's like doesn't sound like amazing, not the best kick I've ever heard, but like there's like an aura of this album that's like why I love it, and like they
Yeah.
said something that I also happen to like agree with and
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't like if I had input on it, it would be way worse, you know.
Okay,
but they
here-
got to do their thing, and that's why it's good.
Yeah, I think that's very,
Yeah.
very significant, and you summed it up in a very nice way. And I'm going to also try to sum it up in a nice, neat little bow, which won't fit perfectly, but it's trying to avoid art by committee.
Right.
If you look at like public government sanctioned art, like physical art, I'm talking about physical art. Actually, on the campus of where I went to college at Sonoma State University, if anyone's ever been there, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a statue in the middle of the quad that they call Bacon and Eggs because it super vaguely resembles a piece of bacon.
What's
and
it
some egg.
supposed to be?
Nobody fucking knows. No, it
It's
gets
supposed
better.
to not offend anyone.
It
That's-
gets better. The artist who created it, they asked him what it was, and he was like, "It's open to interpretation." So basically, it was the most inoffensive, bland piece of art that they could get. It's not really
Right.
art
So what
because
are they trying to
the
say?
artist, quote unquote artist, literally wasn't trying to say anything when he made it.
So what's the point?
So the point is that it's just a decoration, and it was allowed to be put on a college campus because nobody could. It was so bland that you literally couldn't say anything about it except that it was bland.
Wow.
And that's the kind of art that we will wind up with if artists listen that much to what people say.
You know what
Yeah, I
think
else?
so.
There's another thing about it that we haven't mentioned, which is that it's impossible to do that successfully anyways.
Yes.
Have you ever been
Yeah.
in a scenario where you think people are going to appreciate something, work really, really hard on it, and you're sure of it, and then nobody gives a fuck. And then this other thing that you were involved with that was almost a joke gets bigger, gets a lot bigger.
Totally.
And that happens,
Today
We were just talking
I
about that.
experienced
so
this.
okay, so I'm sure it happens with everything from YouTube videos to albums that you produce in the studio to songs you write as a band. It's just you can't predict this stuff. And so if you sacrifice your own artistry to try to satisfy
Right.
what you think other people want because you think it's going to make you more successful, well,
That is the
It missed the
definition of
fucking
that is
mark.
the definition of selling
well,
out.
literally,
Literally.
it might work,
Right.
but it also might not work. There's no
Yeah.
way to even know,
Right.
and so it's not worth the risk, in my
Right.
opinion.
There's an authentic element that's just missing that I think your fan base will pick up on. And I think doing like we were talking about this earlier, like a stupid, silly YouTube video that's like 10 seconds that took like no thought to put together will get like way more views than like one that we've worked like super hard on. And I think maybe one
I'm
of the
sure the
reasons
opposite's been true as well.
Yeah.
Though,
Oh,
where
totally.
Videos you've put all this work into have done real well.
Oh yeah,
Little shitty videos have not done well.
Mhm.
So it's impossible to
exactly.
Yeah.
it's impossible to predict.
Yeah.
Is kind of my point.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
nobody's psychic.
Yeah.
So don't sacrifice what it is that people love about you. Kind of like what you're saying. The reason that we love these artists is because they were themselves.
Right.
So
Right.
to sacrifice that over something that is totally arbitrary, impossible to really define, and
Right.
a crapshoot is just dumb.
Yeah.
It's just
No,
dumb.
I agree. Like one of me and Trey's favorite bands, Sonata Arctica, at least growing up, their first few albums sound completely different than when in the middle of the career and even now. And if you were to ask their fan base, if they were to listen to their fan base to what they wanted, I don't want what they want.
Yeah.
I'm happy with their newer stuff, especially in the middle era of their stuff. So it's also in the spectrum of they could listen to some people, but that doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to be happy.
You're never going to make everybody happy.
You're never going to make anybody happy.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well
you
try and
have
make
to
yourself
yourself
happy.
There we go.
So
Yeah.
back to earlier, I don't remember who said it about the difference between art and business
Yeah,
and
it was
making
me.
good business moves. I don't think that it's a good business move to listen to the fans. So you were saying that this is just purely art. I disagree. I think it's art and business. I think that by throwing away what the core of the product is, if you want to get down to business and say that the product are the songs and the band, if you are sacrificing what it is that people are paying money for on a whim, which is really what it is,
Yeah.
it's kind of a shitty business move.
Yeah. That's a
Like, it's not smart business.
Yeah.
So it's bad art and bad business. And then there's this other thing that's kind of uncomfortable to admit, but artists, great artists or successful artists, happen to create something that resonates with lots of people at a certain point in time, because there's something that just syncs up in their subconscious that it's just relevant to a lot of people at that point in time. And there are some artists who just, because they are who they are and they're just tapped in with something, they can somehow evolve with it. But sometimes that doesn't always work. Like the artist grows in a different direction from what's really relevant to a lot of people, and you can't force that in any direction. And so there is a little bit of luck to all this. Luck, not saying that there isn't a ton of hard work, but whether or not you're creating something that's relevant to lots of people, that's the luck factor. And since you can't predict it, you can try as hard as you want to write something that you think people are going to like. But if you have gotten out of sync with the masses, you've gotten out of sync with the masses, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Every artist in history has had a shelf life. Sometimes it's one album, sometimes it's one movie, sometimes it's 10 movies or 3 albums, sometimes it's a 40-year-long career. I mean, it's different in every case, but you can't control where the collective unconscious is going, and you can't control whether or not you're in sync with that. And so to even try is just fruitless. So it's dumb on all fronts.
It's not that doing your own thing is a formula for success, but it's that doing it this other way is probably a formula for failure.
Right.
An absolute formula for failure. And like
of the two options, which was going to be your best bet.
So it's actually great news. This is the
did it,
conclusion that
guys.
we've come to.
We figured out the music
great
industry.
because we're saying that the best option is to be true to yourself, not to listen to your fans, even diehard fans will lead you astray.
Right.
Or I mean, maybe not, but pretty likely that if you try to listen to a group of people, especially if they don't make records,
fuck them. Don't
or
listen
art.
to them.
Fuck them. Don't listen to them.
Don't listen to them.
You're gonna actually have a bad time. So you should just not do what you want and follow every stupid whim.
Right.
But the best possible thing for you to do is to make the best piece of art that you can
Stay
make.
true to your statement.
Stay true to your artistic statement. Care about the thing that you're making, and do it the way that you want to do it. Execute your artistic vision as you see it, and don't fucking worry about anybody else.
And if you are writing music for the masses and you happen to have success with it by guessing what you think the masses are going to like, well, then you're the Warren Buffett of music. I mean, there are some people who just know how to pick the winning racehorse.
Right.
And so, like, if that's you, awesome. But that's a very, very unlikely reality. I mean, there are those people, but they're statistically insignificant. They're complete and total outliers. And so, that's the luck factor again.
Right.
Like, if you happen to be one of those people, fucking yay. But but don't count on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am with you, Trey.
Yeah.
They shouldn't listen to what fans say at all, in my opinion.
I think I'm happy. I'm honestly really stoked right now that we just like got to this point. This actually helps me a lot because
Does it?
because
Good.
you know, like every artist on earth, I'm perpetually second guessing myself.
Right.
You're also in the
And-
public eye all the time.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more about like with my music. Okay, with me and Alex's
Yeah.
band In Virtue.
Yes.
We're getting towards the end of recording an album, and
One day I'll finish the keyboard
this
parts.
is all I know.
Harpsichord.
This is all.
Dude, there's no can
Hey,
you believe
there
it?
it
There's no
is.
harpsichord yet?
Yeah, that was an
Believe it?
artistic
I liked your
decision
I liked
that
your
I made.
other album
The
when
fans,
you
look,
used
the fans
harpsichord.
demand.
I'm just
There was
wondering
a-
why your
there
new
was
album
a
doesn't
little
have
bit
any
of-
When I
harpsichord.
say bring a harpsichord, you should listen to me.
Yeah, he's the one fan you gotta listen
No,
to.
finish your thought. What were you saying? You're about to finish a record.
And like every artist on earth, I've been second guessing and thinking about all of this stuff. And while I do sort of think about what other people are going to think about it when it's out, and it's going to have an impact on me.
Well, you
on whether or
hope people like it.
I hope that people like it.
Well,
Everybody
there's not-
does.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with
like
that.
I said, if I wasn't, then I wouldn't even put it out. It wouldn't be
Right.
It wouldn't be a question. It would just I made this thing for me and spent
I
a
think
lot of
people.
money.
I think
Okay.
people will like it.
I
like
think people
it.
are going to like it too.
But
and,
what if they
and you
don't?
know why? You know why I think people are going to
Why's
like it?
that?
Because I'm a people and I like it.
Yeah.
But
You know
now
why
I-
else?
I am people, and so
this-
can you.
But you know why else? Because Ayla had a hand in helping us
Yeah,
make it.
I forgot. He's
Did I?
literally sitting right here. and I
It was a
fucking
while
forgot.
ago.
Yeah.
Yes, AL tracked
So
my
that-
vocals on 2 songs that will be on the album.
Damn,
3
you guys
songs.
have been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
Holy
Shut up.
shit.
And I was like, when was that?
Yeah, but
That
this is.
was-
I
that
mean,
was a while ago.
initially it was going to be an EP, and now it's going to be a full length. So, because I'm a fucking idiot.
So by 2025,
No, it's
That'll-
almost
that'll
done.
be like your dark side of
It's
the moon.
legitimately almost done.
Yeah.
I know everybody always says that, but it's actually.
But look,
The last
you
90%.
want people to like it.
I want people to like it. Everybody wants people to
what-
like the thing.
but
We
what
all
if they
need
don't?
validation. If they don't, that's a
just
great question.
kill myself.
How will I take it?
No,
like
but for
but-
real. If everything we just talked about, like you do your own stuff, you do hope people like it, but
Mm-hmm.
there could be a possibility that this album is just out of step with what
Mhm.
a lot of people that are into that genre of music want.
Yeah.
It just could be.
Well, as someone who already put one of those out twice.
Yeah. Twice.
Third time's a charm.
I'll
Let's
tell
go.
you. I'll tell you how I feel now about our previous 2 releases, and that
that
is I'm still very proud of the songs and how I wrote them and how they turned out. And when I listen to them, I still feel awesome, and I love listening to it personally. So I'm glad that I did it.
Especially that one song with the
but-
banjos.
Especially that one song with the banjos, and the banjo was a weird choice, but everybody loved it.
Yeah.
So
Are the fans going to get banjos on this new album, or
No banjo.
no, but
I'm out.
Yeah, but so
For
now,
me, there
so
were
now
better banjos on the line.
for me,
I just think that
the banjo was the golden shining moment of the album for me.
That's right.
So, God damn it, for me, I'm gonna get you a shirt that just says "for me," question or comma, and then that'll be the whole shirt for me. So now that you've actually asked me a terrifying question, because thinking about
I'm good at
this
that.
next one being that same thing again, like being basically like commercially a wet fart, like just going over like really just basically being nothing, just being like a and then
Yeah, but
That's
we're
what my band's last record was.
what?
Our final record, yeah, it was total commercial wet fart.
Oh man.
I mean, yeah, but that record was a statement, 100%.
Mhm.
We did everything that we wanted to do, or at least I did, down to mastering it really quiet for maximum dynamics, like natural drums, actually.
That is actually
my
ballsy.
God.
And when
What?
that record came out, that was
Yeah.
not what everybody was doing.
No, people, like, and I know that maybe it could have done commercially better if we had, like, the big sampled snare and, like, had a really loud record, but I didn't want to do that shit. And so it cost us. I'm pretty sure it cost us. And that was that. So been there, but
yeah.
still alive.
do you
Yeah.
regret that it didn't go over as well as you had hoped?
No, thank God it didn't. Because if my band did just a little bit better, and like better enough to keep the band together, I wouldn't be doing this. Probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is a blessing.
I believe that everything happens for a
So
reason.
yeah, I don't believe that, but
Yeah, I don't believe that either.
but I believe.
'Cause
I
I'm
believe
glad
I'm
that
kidding.
went
I'm
over
kidding.
that.
I was just being basic. I'm
No, I
basic.
know.
Oh, I'm a
I believe
Pisces, so
successful
Yes.
people know how to
Exactly.
how to turn failure into a win.
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
Yeah.
they,
You need
they know how
failure.
to
I think anyone who, has the will and the mindset to do to be successful, like just because they did something successful once before doesn't mean they can't do that again. It might
Yeah.
be something different. It might not be the same thing, but I think they'll still find success.
So for me,
For me,
the most important thing in this is that, like you were saying, every band puts out a stinker now and again, or like every, not everything that goes out is going to be as good, but you have to make that stinker to get to the next one.
right?
you have to
If that's
commit
what
to
you've
it.
got in you at that time,
Yeah, but you just
it's less important for me that this album be the end all be all success, or even a great success or a
Right.
huge success. It's just that we then make one after that,
right.
and
Mhm.
another
But
one.
I think there are things we're doing very differently with this album.
Oh, absolutely.
in pretty much every aspect.
much every
of-
way.
Yeah,
Right.
Like not just from the music and the production, but like the business side of things. And
well,
all
now
that stuff.
I have kind of an understanding
Right.
of what
how shit works.
Yeah.
how shit works, and it
Yeah.
took me being in a job in the industry for 5 years to have any perspective at all, and to have any contacts.
Yeah, people.
Two important
Most important.
things.
On the last one, I literally would have given somebody money to promote it, but I didn't even know any people who did that.
God,
Right.
that's such a bad move. But you want to know where For Me comes from?
Where
So we're playing in Poland, and our sound guy either quit the tour or was sick that day. I don't remember.
Two very different things.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's
Okay.
like 2009 or something.
All right.
We're opening for Unearth and Chimera and Throwdown, I believe. And so we're in Poland, and we had the house sound guy sound checking us again because our sound guy was gone.
Mhm.
And so we're doing a sound check where he's just not saying much. Like we're not getting much feedback out of him. I don't mean like the noisy feedback. I mean, we're not getting much communication out of him. He's just barking orders and just like moving on to the next thing. Very uncomfortable sound check. We play through a song, and then he gets up and he leaves. He doesn't say anything like sound check's over. Thanks, guys. Whatever. So we're like, hey, is that fine? Like, does it sound okay? He's like, for me, this is shit. I was like, all right.
Good.
We all busted out laughing because it was
For
so
me?
perfect. For me, this is shit. So that always it's stuck with me. For me, like
for
yeah,
me.
for me.
Wow, that's
This is shit.
hilarious.
Hey, man.
Oh my god.
Like, all right.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
agree with that.
Oh man, that's funny.
Something
For you?
I had such a great time in Poland, and all the Polish people I met were so great. It's funny to me. I mean, of course, there's shitty people everywhere, but I literally was just there, and everybody treated me so great that it's hilarious. To
Well,
hear that.
later on that night, we got surrounded by a bunch of neo-Nazis and about 200 of them, and
200.
almost got knifed to death. So
Holy
didn't
shit.
have a-
shit,
was
dude.
not a good night.
What the hell?
For me, this is not
For
a
me,
good
this
night.
was not a good night.
Why you guys specifically?
Well, it wasn't us.
Oh, okay.
It was somebody else on the tour.
Oh.
Apparently broke a monitor or something by jumping on it. Like, he didn't mean to break it.
Oh,
but-
okay.
So,
And they were like calling neo-Nazis.
And
no,
apparently,
well, they wanted to get paid like $5,000. So it was like they were trying to extort
right.
the tour party. So when this other band started to like get loud about that, then suddenly all these Nazis started showing up. Like, yeah, they were coming out of the woods, and like suddenly all these like bald dudes with like swastikas are just there. Lots of them. They barricaded the buses in. It was fucking scary.
What
the
the
fuck?
There
hell?
were over 100 of them. I'm not kidding. And
I can't even imagine what
know
I
how-
would think or do in
know
that
how we
situation.
got out of it?
How?
someone gave them bottle of Jaeger and 2 shirts.
That's all it takes.
What?
That's all it took.
Wow.
So they wanted the $5,000,
All right,
but they
Trey.
settled for Jaeger and 2 shirts.
All right, Trey. Note to self: forever
That's
in
a good one.
situation
Keep that in your back pocket.
in Poland with neo-Nazis, just have a bottle of Jaeger on hand.
It's part of the Nazi code that they can only wear 2 shirts at a time and can need to drink 1 bottle of Jaeger.
But it wasn't
And it breaks
2
the curse.
It wasn't 2 shirts per Nazi. It was 2
shirts
shirts for the sound guy and a bottle of Jaeger, and then
And then he was like, "For me, this is good."
yeah, disperse. And then they
It was call off my army.
Wow.
All they require.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
So my experience in Poland was different. And want to know my other experience in Poland?
Sure.
Yeah.
It was in 1986, and Chernobyl or 85 had just exploded. It was one of those memories from childhood. My dad was doing concerts there, and so we had to evacuate. I didn't understand too much, but we weren't allowed to drink the milk or eat eggs or anything. And crazy military presence, like getting guarded by militaries on trains and airplanes, and it was fucking crazy. Like, I don't remember much about it.
Yeah.
So experience 1 was evacuating because of Chernobyl. Experience 2 was
Evacuating because of Nazis.
yeah.
And
But I'm
learning
sure
how
it's
cheap
cool.
they are to buy off.
Poland seems like a wonderful place.
Oh my
But
God.
I'm going to try going to a neo-Nazi march with a bottle of Jaeger and 2 shirts and being like, "Will you leave?" Here you go. Just giving it to them.
Please.
And they're like, "Yes."
Good-
they
good
just
luck.
all
For
leave.
me.
Yeah.
but I'm sure Poland's a great place.
Yeah.
We love you, Poland.
We love you,
it's-
Poland.
Yeah. No.
Hey, I mean, Nazis,
I know a few
Nazis
Polish
ruin
people.
everything. Nazis
Yes.
from anywhere.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Although I guess there are probably some places where there
Yeah.
just aren't any native Nazis.
Oh,
You know?
no, these guys were, these guys had the lineage, basically.
Oh yeah. Didn't okay. Well, anyway.
To piggyback back on to what you were talking about with like knowing what to do with the band and stuff like that. I've had like a number of people over the years hit me up like, I don't know what how do you get your band? Like, what do I do? Like, how? It's like, why is it so complicated? I was like,
God.
well,
What are they asking? I didn't understand.
they're
to
basically
become
asking
successful?
like how to become successful. Like, how do you
I think
Make all the
become
right moves.
Yeah, what's
I
the
think
right
people
moves?
don't even know where to start to A, promote their music, or B, to get it in front of people or to hire people who know
yeah,
what to
but
do.
I
you
think-
know what? The majority of the time that those people hit me up, I hear their music and it's not worth promoting. So,
That's the first problem. Have good music.
Yeah, generally, and I would say, this is a non-scientific figure, but
Right.
I'd say high 90s percentile that the amount of people who have hit me up asking for this kind of advice don't need that kind of advice. They need to improve their music.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the
That's a good
true.
first step.
like what I've noticed is like the people who hit me up and ask me, it's like, I don't know what to do and all and like they how do I word this? So I don't know when this happened, how this came into the mindset, but they think that they're gonna get found, and then everything will
just work
and
out
everything will just
fine.
like go into place. Like this is like the overall like,
Yeah.
like at least
Waiting for a big break,
90%
man.
of people think that I just gotta make music, play it, and then eventually somebody's going to hear it, and then they like wonders like how do
They're
I
gonna
break
be
it into the
plucked from
industry?
obscurity.
See,
Yeah.
that's wrong, but in some ways it's kind of right.
I mean, there
And
are
there's-
instances.
That's like 90% of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the networking and all that's super, super crucial.
Right.
However, if that other part, the just making music and playing it, if that part's not fucking badass,
Right.
nothing else matters. Like,
Right.
it won't work.
Right.
You can hire the
Yeah.
best publicist, hire the best team, and it will not mean shit.
Yeah.
So
As someone
there is a little
who-
bit of
Yeah,
truth
but
to
yeah,
that.
but there are cases where some of these bands come to me. They're actually badass in terms of their music and their performance and stuff like that. And like the thing is, the main thing is they just don't see it as a business, or you have to tell them, look, like you can't think of this as a band. Like you have to think of this as a business. Like if you want
Yeah,
to get
but
signed
what
by a
does that
label,
mean?
like if you want to get, like if for example if they're like trying to get signed by a label, okay, you have to ask yourself, a label is a business. They're in the business of making money. Yeah, they want to sign bands and they want to promote new bands and grow bands and all that stuff because it's better for their business. So how are you going to help them with their business? Are you worthy of that?
Do you have something that they
Yeah,
can
do you
sell?
have something that they can sell, right? Like, and if you're barely able to afford to even like get the remote, like even a good decent sounding demo of your record, then you should probably,
Work harder on that.
Work harder
Right.
on that.
So I will then say
Yeah.
that they're not badass. Like I think that if you're not able to reproduce your sound in a recorded medium and have it be amazing, you're not badass.
No, I mean I don't mean like they can't record well. I mean like they go to like actual like place to like record it properly, like good production.
I don't understand what you're saying.
What
You
do you
just said they have good production.
No.
No,
Alex,
no.
Alex switched gears in the middle of this.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What gear did you switch to?
Which part is it?
So Alex is saying that they need to think about whether or not they have something
Right.
that's worth other people investing their time and money in
Right.
them.
Completely
So
agree.
and
Yeah.
that's what EYAL was saying. But Alex, you were also saying that a lot of times people come to you to ask about the business aspect
Yes.
of it, even though their band is good.
Right,
Or their
yes.
band is really good and they might not know anything about the business side.
Right.
And that can be pretty. It's not as common as bands that are both shitty musically and production wise and don't have any
Right.
knowledge of the business.
Yeah. But
There's-
like
so those are the two things that you have to have
Yeah.
both of. Okay, you have to like having good music, well written songs, good production. That's just baseline. Okay, you can't even.
It's assumed.
It's assumed
Yeah.
the,
If
the
you wanna get to
business
the
aspect
table-
of it. The business aspect of it. The business side of the music industry is closed to you until
Right.
you have achieved those things.
Right,
Okay.
yes.
You have not. You are not worthy of any of the side of the. Like just play at bars on the weekends.
Right.
And annoy people who are trying to eat a nice dinner. Like that's fine. just do that until you've leveled up, and then.
Yeah.
But then. The business aspect of it
like if you understand
is
the
a
business,
constant learning.
right?
I think.
If you understand that it's like a business, like if somebody understands it's a business and you're trying, everyone involved needs to be able to make money, including yourself.
You know what? Here's my problem with what you're saying.
Okay.
It's because I agree with you,
Mhm.
but I have a problem with the statement, your band, you have to look at your band with a business. The reason I have a problem with it
Right.
isn't because I think it's untrue. I actually think it's true. It's because so many people say it, but then you're saying it to people who don't understand what that even means.
That's
So
yes.
when you say
That
you
is
got to
a-
think
that-
of
that's
your
what it-
band,
yeah.
when you got to think of your band as a business, it's like, okay, but wait, what?
How do I do that?
How?
Yeah, that's
is that?
exactly the answer they give me basically.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why it's not good advice.
Yeah.
So really, I think it's better advice to try to get them to put themselves in the other person's shoes. So think that you're the owner of a label or you're a manager
Right.
and you have the option of working with band A that has pretty good music and has videos on YouTube that are getting hits and do their own tours and have their own merch and, you know, have all their shit on all the right platforms
Yeah.
versus band B who's equally as good but never does anything. If you're a manager, who are you going to choose to work with? And then once they start seeing it from other people's perspective, they start to understand it without really having to understand this ambiguous thing of what a business is.
Right.
Because it's like that could mean so many different things.
Yeah.
So I would think I would phrase it more in terms of what value do you bring to the people you want to work with, and
Yes.
why would they even decide to work with you? Like, would you work
Right.
with you?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
ask
Right.
them if they
See it
would
from
work
their
with
side.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten people to like.
The problem with asking them to see if they work with themselves is that they'll usually say yes, and it's like
No,
the answer
not
should
if
be
they're
no.
being
There's,
honest.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're lacking
that's the
some
thing.
self
Not if they're
awareness.
being honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that one thing that you can one kind of not so much exact advice as like an absolute piece of advice is like learning about the lanes in the music industry. Like there are avenues
Right.
that that major labels and even not just major labels, but people who are in the business like know about and are thinking about all the time. Okay, like these days, getting playlisted on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that. That's a major, huge
Deal.
thing
Huge deal.
that people who are executives in labels are really, really concerned with. Okay,
Yes.
and there's a lot of when they're thinking about putting out music with a band, they're trying to get on these playlists like New Music Fridays or something like or like certain trying to get the music in front of influential people and like what it takes to do that. And those kinds of avenues, those kinds of lanes that are well-worn paths, and those are the things that you have to learn about. And you can only learn about that by talking to people who are actually doing them. And that's not really something that I can necessarily help anybody with. You know what I mean? Like,
you could, man. There's
exactly,
the thing is,
but
there's resources. Like for instance, the Managemental podcast that Blasco and Mike Mowery do. Like,
I've
yeah.
not heard that.
there
That
are
sounds like something I
there
should
are
listen to.
people.
Blasco's a person who would know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he does know.
Yeah.
And
Mike
there
Mowery,
are
too.
resources. And so the thing about those bands, like when I get hit up in situations like that, the reason I'm like, you have already failed, is because these resources are so easy to find, and they're
right there.
They're not doing that work. Like if they can't do that,
Yeah.
how the hell are they going
Yeah.
to actually
Right.
put the work into making their band successful? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, like I said,
I
they're
kind of
like-
feel like they've lost before.
Yeah, like
they've
I said,
even
like
gotten out the
90%
gate.
of them, 90% of them just think that, oh yeah, I just need to keep playing shows, and then somebody will notice me, and then that's how things get going.
Yeah.
So
They're
they
wrong.
think they think, yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm wondering. I'm like wondering how did it how did it become like it's
Where
so
did that idea start?
Yeah, it's so dominant that it had to have been like some major thing to make all
Well,
these.
I always
people
think about like a
movies. Yeah,
singer songwriter
movies.
in like
Yeah,
a club
maybe.
somewhere,
Behind
and
the
like the
music.
record label executive like came to the show and like picked them, and like they're like,
yeah, there's
you know,
stories of it. I mean, it's happened. Of course, it's happened. But like it's so rare.
Well, I
Right,
think
exactly,
I think
yeah.
part of it is once upon a time there were not a billion bands, and so people who wanted to have a record label had to go out and find new bands, and they would just go to shows a lot and be like, "Oh shit, this band is great.
Right.
I can sell albums. Hey, do you want to?" But now they don't have to fucking set foot out of their living room and
There's
without
so
getting
many bands and
bombarded
artists.
by 800,000 million bands or artists or whatever. And so it makes, I mean, I'm just spitballing, but it makes sense to me that that's something that could have happened a lot more in the past and will absolutely probably not really happen anymore. Absolutely. Probably is a phrase
Man,
that just came out of my mouth.
I just
but
think that bands need to take control of their own shit, own their careers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the fact, like, okay, so I'm not saying don't ask people questions, because asking questions of people who are in the industry is really great. It's helpful. But if you're asking them questions to things that you could have easily found yourself, that means you're not really taking ownership over your career, and you're going to fail more than likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing that's really, really important is when you're talking to people in the industry that they don't feel like you're wasting their time,
yeah.
so
Yes.
that they want to hang out with you more.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
they don't feel like you're a constant drag. And so by getting access to you, who has a platform and are asking you stupid questions, you're not an asshole, so you might not be thinking,
Right.
these losers, I hope they never hit me up again or whatever.
Right.
But you're probably not going to like go out of your way
Seek
to hit
them
them up.
out.
But you're not going to
No.
seek them out.
No.
And so, but there are people who are like much more shark like, who will be like, fuck these guys for wasting my time.
Right.
Yeah.
Regardless of where your personality is on that spectrum,
Right.
the end result is the same. That if you waste people's time, they're not going to fuck with you.
I think-
And
yeah.
I think
think
that
people-
these bands need to, man, they need to take control of their
Yeah.
own shit.
Mhm.
And I think people very much don't value or don't understand the value of really having like actual friends in the industry more so than just like
Yeah, the
rando
networking, man.
contacts. So I'm very fortunate to have a very good friend who works at a major label in metal. And,
Yes.
And
Is it?
I
is
had
it,
a
is it our
conversation.
same friend?
Yes.
Yes.
And I had a conversation with her just even in the last week or so that like I learned so much about the way that labels are working these days that I like completely rethought a lot of things. And I didn't feel like I was punishing her by getting by asking questions about it
Right.
because we're actually friends.
Right.
And she's never going to feel like I'm wasting her time because we're just hanging out and having a conversation.
And,
I hope.
And also, if you're talking about music and the industry, she's talking to someone who has their own platform, who has taken ownership of their own career.
Right.
And so she doesn't, friends aside, it's not a waste of her time to be talking to you about this stuff.
That's true too.
So there's this mutual respect. So you are genuine friends, but you're also genuine, not colleagues, but peers.
Yeah, peers.
Peers.
Yeah.
Like your peers. And that's very, very important that distinction's made. So you're not wasting her time. She's not wasting your time. And on top of that, you're friends.
Yeah.
Hence, you got that insider info.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess then to package this for people in bands, people who are listening who are in bands or are artists or managing artists or whatever, like it's being a good hang is incredibly important, and also having something of value that people want so that they feel like you're not wasting their time. That's harder to do, but you build that by taking ownership of your shit and like you're saying, like if a band shows up to a party where there's a bunch of industry folk and they have something, they have a following, they have some numbers, they're putting up decent numbers on whatever YouTube or Spotify or something, and they can then those people are going to want to talk to them, or if they've built up some buzz independently of working with the sort of music industry at large, then they're not going to be wasting those people's time. And on top of that, if they're not like pain in the ass punishers, if they're not
Complete total weirdos,
total fucking weirdos, super awkward or whatever,
Right.
You have an opportunity to advance your career by meeting people and networking. Otherwise, you will actually be wasting their time. Forget about whether or not they feel like you're wasting their time. You might actually legitimately be wasting their time and yours
and your own,
because you just don't have anything to offer.
Right.
I
There's
mean,
no
if you
incentive
want
for
to,
them
like,
care.
if you're at this fictional party, and
I've
you want to
been at
be
that party
and you want to
many
be there,
times.
then just be a dude, just hang out.
Yeah.
And grab get them a beer, like,
Yeah.
and just make them remember you well, so that later on when you've got something to bring to the table,
I always tell people
they remember you kindly.
I always tell people who like feel like weird about it or like they feel that they're socially awkward. Like, yeah, but what if this is like, well, in that case, play it on the safe side. Like, do like a little what you feel like would be like not that much. If you're worried about like making like that bad of an impression,
Yeah, keep it simple.
Like just keep it simple, man. Like I know of a lot of people who are very awkward socially, and they're always like worried about it. I'm like, well, like, look, you don't have to like just because you see me. Like I'm great with people. Like I'm an extrovert. I love talking to people. I'm very sociable.
not awkward at all.
Not awkward at all. A little awkward. Everybody's a little awkward, but don't feel because if you see me doing my thing, like this happens a lot at NAMM. When I bump into people at NAMM, they ask me all this stuff, and they see me like talking to all these people, and they're like, "Dude, like, how do I?" It's like, dude, just don't be weird, man. Just
People are people.
like, look, like if you think to yourself, would I be weirded out if somebody did that to me? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably
don't do
weird.
that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is have a little more self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Guys, I hate to do this, but I got a jet.
yeah, you do.
Oh no.
No.
Yeah. No, it's been great talking to you guys, though.
Hell yeah, man.
We should do
Happy.
this again.
Yeah, I'm happy
And
for the time we had.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I think that we solved all
We
the
broke down
world's
some
problems.
barriers
Yeah,
today.
we solved all the world's problems.
I
in
think we
music.
solved racism today.
We,
I think we can all agree on that.
We all agree that Glenn is wrong about samples. we figured out that
What band should do.
what bands should do,
And
and then also what the artist should do.
What-
we figured
what-
out everything.
We checked all the boxes.
this was the most important podcast that has ever happened in the history of time.
Yes.
You're
Please
welcome.
send the history of this couch in the past hour.
Now that's some excessive nerd
Well,
shit.
either or. That's some
Ayo.
excessive nerd shit.
You should tell.
Well,
you should tell Al how that name came up.
yeah, well,
about-
he's only got 1 minute, so I'm gonna go instead. I'm gonna thank him for coming. Thank you for coming, Al.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you so
me.
man.
much, man.
Thanks.
Everybody, check out unstoppablerecordingmachine.com.
It's actually URM.academy. Sorry, but
Shit.
Oh, what the fuck do you know?
I don't know.
You're going to want to go to urm.academy for all that stuff. Thanks again also to Sweetwater for sponsoring our podcast.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this right now, you're listening through the Rode microphones and recorder thingy that
It's called the
that we
Rodecaster
got,
Pro, bro.
the Rodecaster Pro
Bro.
gear that we got on Sweetwater. Can't say enough good things about Sweetwater. Buying from them is awesome. They have the best customer service, almost to a fault.
It's
I'm
actually
sure
true. It's
if,
true.
if
This
you've
is
ever
true.
bought something from Sweetwater, you have gotten a phone call from someone asking you how it's working out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, bro, the cable that I bought from you 3 years ago is working great.
Stop calling
Yeah.
me.
You want to know
Um,
something?
Well,
Speaking of the cable,
When you need it, you need it.
Speaking of that cable that I bought from them many years ago, I've bought a lot of stuff from them. They actually fulfilled the lifetime warranty on some cables I bought many years ago from
Wow.
them. That
Wow.
Damn.
Hot damn.
Yeah,
testament.
I'm
And you didn't even need the receipt?
Nope, because they have good records, and they treat
you
their
go.
customers great. No, I
Hell
mean
yeah.
I'm a Sweetwater fan.
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, thank you guys for listening as well at home, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite outlet for podcasts. We are on Spotify and iTunes, and
All
be
those
sure
other
to
ones.
mash that subscribe button.
Can I plug my podcast real quick?
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Do it.
AL should also plug
Yeah.
his podcast, and you should listen to it.
Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast or URM Podcast if you like the sound of my voice.
It's an amazing podcast. I
do.
listened to
Thanks.
pretty much all the episodes that come out. There was one with Trey on
There's
it.
an episode with Trey,
Yeah.
so if you like my voice, you can go listen to that.
Yeah, there's like 250 episodes to dork out on. So
Yes.
thanks, guys.
All right, peace out.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Gear Gods Excessive Nerd Shit Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes and other podcast subscription services.